Jose Smith, I appoint you as conservator for the property of your grandfather, Julian Smith. I am Ted Baca, a judge for the 2nd Judicial District Court of New Mexico. This video explains the legal obligations the conservator has to the person he or she is responsible for, as well as to this court. The reason you are watching this video is because you are being considered or have already been appointed as conservator for another person's property. I want to be sure you understand what this means.
A ward is an incapacitated person who requires someone else's help to make decisions and ensure the provision of his or her care. A ward may be incapacitated due to neurological problems, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease, traumatic brain injury, stroke, Parkinson's, and the like, impaired judgment for whatever reason that affects health, safety, and finances, mental illness, developmental disability, physical illness or disability, chronic use of drugs, chronic intoxication, or other reasons to the extent that he or she can no longer adequately care for himself or his property, putting him or others at risk.
A conservator is responsible for handling the ward's, the incapacitated person's, money and property. Sometimes the ward is referred to on accounts as the conservatee. The conservator works hand in hand with the guardian to maximize assets and make decisions that serve the financial and best interest of the ward. If the court allowed your ward to make some of his or her own financial decisions, you will be working with the ward in the management of the money and the property. Regardless, you have the duty to take better care of the ward's money and property than you do your own. The new conservator has 90 days to submit an inventory to the court. The inventory must list all known assets and the value of those assets. Examples of assets include sources of income, bank accounts, stocks, bonds, real estate, contracts, loans, credit card obligations, medical bills, vehicles, and all other items of value. Assets should be brought under your control and retitled in your name as conservator for the ward. An example is John Smith as conservator for Jane Brown, conservatee. You should make sure to record a certified copy of her letters in each county the ward owns property. Each entity that holds assets for the ward should receive a certified copy of the letters. The conservator is responsible for recording and maintaining a record of all income, expenditures, and assets. The size of the estate dictates the complexity of the accounting system used by the conservator. The range can vary from a 4-column ledger to a professional report by a CPA. An easy bookkeeping system on a computer program like Quicken is used by many conservators but is not required. When possible, the conservator should consult with the ward prior to a decision being made. The ward's wishes should be honored whenever possible, unless such a decision would be harmful or not in the best interest of the ward.
Throughout your role as conservator, you will experience many challenges that will test your integrity, responsibility, and credibility.
Here are a few examples of working relationships you might encounter. Trustee of the ward's trust, bankers, real estate agents, lawn services, property managers, debt collectors, and service providers all must receive a certified copy of the letters. An agent under a financial power of attorney, ward's spouse or partner, relatives. Here are a few examples of assets that you could be addressing. Real estate, primary residence, vacation home, and timeshare. Insurance documents, life, term, accidental death. Bank accounts. Many older folks use multiple banks and/or credit unions. Deposit boxes. When you open it, have a witness. Stocks and bonds. Cars and other vehicles, owned, leased, or owned jointly. Credit cards. Credit check will help identify accounts and look for other signers. Debts owed to the ward, old bank statements and safety deposit boxes. Retirement accounts from a prior employer or a spouse's prior employer. Pension plans. Government, spouses, check to see how it's paid out. Social Security, direct deposit, separate account, spouse's account. You will be responsible for sorting out bills and deciding what bills will be paid first. A review of the ward's mail and checking account will provide a quick guide to monthly bills, and you can always review a credit report to see what other accounts exist. As the new bill payer, you will want to do an address change at the post office to make sure you are seeing all of the mail. When you do this, take a copy of the letters and submit them with the change of address. This will stop any other attempts at changing the mail address and put the post office on notice. Managing the ward's estate. You have a duty to manage the ward's estate in his or her best interest. You have a duty to keep complete records of your actions. You have a duty to account to the court. You must keep your money and the ward's money separate. You should consider setting up a petty cash fund. Disbursements of money must be supported by receipts. Valuables such as jewelry, furs, furniture, art, and the like should all be inventoried and appraised when possible and stored appropriately if needed. If you have to sell assets to pay for the ward's care, you may want to retain a qualified attorney to advise you on whether or not you need the court's permission to sell the ward's property. Anything belonging to the ward must be sold at fair market value, and this should be supported by professional appraisals whenever possible. You are not allowed to give yourself or other family members a deal on anything you sell. Keep in mind, all sales and major transactions that have tax consequences should be recorded in the ward's Social Security number. A conservator should maintain the ward's estate plan to the extent possible. You should obtain a copy of the ward's estate plan. You are responsible for filing the required state and federal tax returns. Be sure to protect the ward's property with adequate insurance. If there is a claim, it is your responsibility to file that claim. Make funeral and burial plans. Funeral and burial plans should be pre-planned if economically possible. You will need to determine the ward's preferences in relation to burial and funeral services. If the ward is not able to provide input, consult with relatives and friends to determine the individual's wishes. A representative from a funeral service can assist you in pre-planning funeral arrangements as well as a prepayment plan. Draft a budget. Formulate a plan on how you will be addressing all of the ward's income and expenses. Investing the ward's assets if needed. Unless you are an expert in investments, it's best to seek professional help, such as one of the major investment companies. Speculation in medium to high-risk investments are out of the question. Remember, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, insures only up to $100,000. When you open a bank account for the conservatorship, make sure the account is receiving interest on the money in the account. You have a great responsibility, but there are individuals and organizations available and ready to help. The New Mexico Guardianship Association and the Office of Guardianship are resources for you to answer your questions and make this experience a successful and fulfilling time that conservator and ward will both benefit from.
In closing, I want to thank you for your willingness to serve as conservator. You are to be commended for your willingness to accept this obligation. I also want to stress that this is a serious, ongoing legal appointment, which includes important responsibilities both to your ward and to this court. Remember, always consider the best interest of your ward and make every effort to preserve his dignity and independence.
If you have further questions or for more information, please contact New Mexico Guardianship Association